Spicy. How long is a flight from California to Hawaii?
It's like, I mean, we did it Thanksgiving 2 years ago. It was about like 3.5 hours from what I remember. Something like that. 3.5, 4, something like that.
Imagine how long it would be if you went the other way.
Yeah, I mean, you got the world going away from you in that regard.
That'd be
hashtag math or hashtag physics.
Unfortunate.
Oh, I see what you meant. Like the other way around.
Yeah.
That makes way more sense.
Yes, sir. I'm good. Hello, my friends. Welcome to once again a PGA DFS live before lock from Awesemo.com. It is that time. Here we go. I am Ben Raza. I am joined by my man. I thought he might not make the show, but he is still here hanging around with me. Eric Lindquist, ready to talk some Houston Open DFS. We are going to find some plays. We're going to talk some bets. We're going to answer your questions in chat. How are you, my friend?
Doing well. This is so I've got this, and then I've got the podcast tonight. I'm doing the slate starter. I've got EMAC filling in for Ryan. I'm going to be heading over to go get hitched here this weekend, and so taking off tomorrow morning for that. And then I'm heading to Hawaii. So much going on here, but the nice thing about PGA DFS lineups is that gives me a 4-day sweat.
You've got the 4-day sweat. Congratulations to
Thanks,
you. I kind of know, college basketball starts. I feel like that's the same emotions as getting married. I'm very excited for this week as well. So big day for all of us. And certainly Houston Open, one of my favorite. This used to not be a swing season event. I've had some good results here. I like this kind of setup. We get back to Texas. We're back. We got some shot tracker to sweat, and we certainly have different game styles that we can play. I want to talk about Monkey Knife Fight, and we're going to get to them. But before I do, let's get into the weather and the withdrawals, because that's going to affect every platform, no matter where we're playing. First question I always ask you on this show: do you see anything with the weather? Could there be splits? Could there be tee time stacks? What do you want to do there?
Looks like there's going to be some overnight rain here tonight. Then the wind's going to be a little bit more pronounced in the afternoon Thursday. But I mean, this is like a minute thing. It's going to be like 12 miles an hour. It looks like is going to be like the average wind time there in the afternoon. And then it's pretty benign on Friday from what I'm looking at. Hopefully you're seeing the same thing. It is a slight bump. This is not Bermuda. This is not, any kind of a spot where we need to be factoring it in heavily. It's a slight bump, I think, to Thursday AM, Friday PM. Maybe even if you get a little bit of a wet golf course, these guys will just rip this place apart in that regard. But otherwise, I'm just kind of seeing it as pretty neutral.
I'm with you. Again, could there be a split? Of course. Wind picks up in Texas, that can happen. But I don't see anything right now where I'm like, okay, I'm going to really slant anything. Pretty straight up. If you're building enough teams and you want a tee time stack, we always recommend that because you just never know. But I don't see anything too alarming. On the same note, from the withdrawal side, Carlos Ortiz, the defending champ, has decided to pull out, unfortunately, with injury. And then the true loss for the field. I'm surprised the event continued. Emiliano Grillo. So I have to do the rare thing of picking 6 golfers. I have not picked 6 golfers in a long time. Normally I just have to worry about 5. It's going to be a little different, but other than that, I think we're in the clear.
Yeah, I have to worry about 5 because my guy's still in the freaking field, unfortunately. He's playing on Bermuda grass. He's really expensive, but I do not care. We're going to play 5 golfers this week because my 6th is already filled in.
Well, don't worry. We're going to get to the bottom of it. I feel disturbingly confident about this tournament. I don't know why. Just have a good feeling about this. I want to talk about, though, as I said at the top of the show, they've been with us all year. They've done a great job. Monkey Knife Fight, the sponsor of this show. If you guys haven't been over there, just take a couple minutes and go and check it out. It's a super easy format, not a huge time commitment, and it's a different style. Whether you're playing golf, whether you're playing NBA, NFL, obviously PGA, UFC, they have it. You're going to go to monkeyknifefight.com. You choose your game, your buy-in level, and even better, they've got that first match deposit bonus of up to $100 when you sign up with the promo code Awesemo. Eric, I know you're super familiar with their formats. You've got the more or less, where you're basically going over or under a guy's, birdies made. So they've got Patrick Reed on the board this week, 15.5 birdies. If you think he goes low, you're going to go obviously more than that. If you think maybe he's only there for 2 days, you're going to go less. I like that format. I think it's very exploitable.
I'm going to the Aviv Dubai Championship for my picks. That game, that's starting off here at 10 p.m. Doing a little Euro crossover because, again, I want to get as much action in tonight and tomorrow morning as I possibly can to tide me over for 2 weeks. I'm going to be reserving some NFL for week 11. I think I'm going to take this Sunday off, but I'm looking right now at Paul Casey versus Bern Wiesberger. You're seeing only plus 0.5 fantasy points for Bern. That's not enough going up against Paul Casey in this spot. And then in the rapid fire, if you want to have another pairing with that, we've got Matt Wallace versus Sam Horsfield. But Sam Horsfield getting 1.5 fantasy points bump. The way the fantasy points work over there, it's pretty straightforward, even more than like a conventional deal where, it's like the 3 for the birdie, you get the 1 for the par, you kind of go that direction. I'm going to take Matt Wallace Sam Horsfield up against Matt Wallace in that spot. Matt Wallace had a really good Texas swing. That's about all I can say about Matt Wallace recently. One of the crazier tempers on tour. Somebody to pay attention to. I think he'll be pretty good long term, but Sam Horsfield, I think, in a little bit better form.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's not just this tournament. They have action over in Europe as well. So if you want to do your due diligence and dig there, you can find even more edges. I looked at one from Rapid Fire. They have Scheffler versus Burns. I do think this is a pretty good course for both of them. I do kind of lean Scotty Scheffler, though. I think a lot of people in Texas going to be looking at that. He was, pretty damn good at Mayakoba. So a lot of opportunities there. And regardless of where you play, I think we need to know, of course, about the course. Memorial Park, what do we've got here? Eric, what did you see? What do you think? We've seen it a little, but it's certainly not something like Mayakoba where we've gone back a long time with the course.
Yeah, 1 year sample size. We talked about it a lot yesterday on the strategy show with Jason Roslin. It's a public track that they've kind of converted. They shut it down here for a while, grew out the rough. It's a little over 2 inches here in this spot. Looks like on the whole, some of the fairways are maybe a little bit tighter to hit than the average on tour, but the ball's running out about 14 yards longer than expectation of an average tour event. So it can get firmer and faster there. November on Bermuda, that will do it. But, seeing some rain there in the forecast Thursday morning, I feel like it's going to be a golf course that presents some interesting challenges with the par threes for sure. But otherwise, I'm not going completely nuts. I'm curious what you find to be kind of the type of golfer you want to build around. We were going back and forth because it definitely seems like players don't get up and down as often around this track as much as they do on an average PGA Tour golf course, which maybe gives a little bump up to Kevin Na's not in the field, but the Kevin Na type of golfer that we think about, where a little bit more short game. How are you kind of looking at this golf course playing?
So I think that's one of the many interesting wrinkles. It's a par 70, but it is kind of on the longer side. And I do think it is a little demanding off the tee, not in the sense that, if you're not some type of crazy bomber, you can't compete. But I do think if you take aggressive lines, you're rewarded. And that's one of the things we talk about. A lot of courses, it's not that you can't hit driver, it's that why would you? Why would you take the risk if there's no reward? Here, I don't think that's the case. I think if you're willing to do that, you can be paid off. But again, as we look kind of at some of what we're seeing about this course, I think it is a little more technical in spots. You've got to know how to navigate. From what I've read, again, I didn't dig too deep because I think it can be misleading off a small sample size, but it does seem that, like most courses, ball striking is going to be important, knowing where to miss. I know that's a term you golfers always bring up. It's not just about hitting the green. You can be, Augusta's the most extreme example. Sometimes in Augusta, you'd rather be in a bunker than on the green on the wrong plateau. So it's like, I think there's elements of that here. I guess what I like to ask you, though, do you think it's going to play easy, kind of in the middle, ridiculously hard? Where do you think that falls?
This is the most important question, I think, in terms of grouping these golfers. Even more so than, as you said, you don't want to go completely crazy. And, I was trying to group some types of players, but I think that's going to be a little bit more straightforward. But I think it's going to play a little bit easier than it did last year. First of all, the wind's going to be down compared to what you'd normally see in Texas, or what our idea of Texas is going to be. Secondly, I think the rain on Thursday morning is definitely going to be a plus. It's going to take place, I think, before they really tee off. Looks like it's going to be between this 1 and 6 a.m. window. Rain with PGA Tour golfers means people can take it lower than you expect. That's just the way that it always plays out. Rain, where they're allowed to be able to hit shots and know how it's going to land. The real protection of a US Open isn't necessarily that it's just long and that the rough is long, but it's when you hit it into the green, you can get some unruly bounces. When it hits and it stops, these guys are just tacticianers. So I'm looking at a lot of these strokes gain approach, especially with the number of par threes. You alluded to how this is a different kind of a par 70. You've got two beastly par fours, and number 1, number 18, the number 2 and 3 hardest holes on the golf course, both over 500 yards. So you're going to have long irons into those. But then you also have number 7, 216, and then number 11 is 237. That is no joke when you start seeing this. And of course, they're going to adjust those tee boxes. Those are spec'd out to be as long as they can play them. But I'm giving a bump up to some long iron players. And I think because I think it's going to be a little bit lower, I just think grouping a lot of these iron players as a whole is going to be a route that I'm taking a lot more than the average person.
So I think the important thing there, and I like to do this, is, and some guys kind of buck this trend, but in general, if you hit it really far off the tee, you don't really have to be concerned with long irons because you're not going to hit as many. But if you're someone that says, you know what, I'm going to up the accuracy, I'm going to maybe be a little more conservative off the tee, I think you really need to look at their long iron stats, because if they're not going to have wedge opportunities, they're going to need to hit long irons into some of these holes. So if you're talking about targeting a bomber, a guy who destroys off the tee, I think honestly, looking at their wedge stats, can they take advantage and capitalize of what they've done off the tee? It's kind of a totality of their game. It has to, mesh well. That's why DJ at times is so good, because he mastered the wedges, and he has so many of them in because of the way he does it off the tee.
And that's why Bryson doesn't win every week. It comes down to a guy who gains how many strokes off the tee per tournament? A disturbing number would be the right answer to that. And it comes down to him having the same length wedges, having it done a certain way, and he just isn't as precise with them as the average PGA Tour player, not by a long shot. And if he was, you would never beat him.
No doubt. I mean, it's all about that. And we're going to see that. Obviously, this is a swing season field. We don't have guys that have all the shots in their bag, but we still have a lot of that to dig in. And look at this. Friend of the show, Mike Austri, welcome aboard, dude. Happy to have you repping the logo, getting the badges. We love to see that. We also love to see Jacob Watson. I feel your pain. Sunday sweats. Eric, I know you know how that goes. You get there with a chance, crumbles on the back nine, but you know what? It is a good catalyst to see survive. Good things will happen ultimately. Stay at it. It is tilting, my friend. But let's dive into these golfers if you are ready. You ready?
I'm so ready, buddy.
You're ready. I'm ready. Here we go. Sam Burns, your boy, truly your boy, leads us off 11,100. Scheffler at 10.9, Sungjae at 10.7, Finau, Wolf, Cam Smith, and Hatton. You've got 7 guys north of 10. Obviously, you're going to have the ability to mix and match up there. So what do you do when you see that many players paying a premium?
So I was kind of in the NFL streets this morning. I was doing a lot of research on NBA this afternoon, getting ready for my lineups there. And so PGA was kind of the last piece of the puzzle. Started pulling that up when, the Live Before Lock show was going, and started kind of looking at everything and how it changed. So one thing I like to do is I like to keep the ownership tab up and not refresh it on one side from Tuesday's show. And now I'm pulling it up and looking side by side on the difference. Sam Burns basically doubled in ownership. And that's really sad and disturbing to me, because of course I like Sam Burns on Bermuda grass. Of course I like Sam Burns on a golf course where, his off the tee numbers lately have just been ridiculous. The guy is gaining some crazy amount of strokes with the irons, with off the tee. The CJ Cup, he finished 5th, losing strokes off the tee. But before that Sanderson Farms exhibition was ridiculous. 6.1 strokes gained off the tee, 8.3 strokes gained with the irons. We're talking some monumental, better than Tiger Woods type shit. We're talking about the best ball striker, at any point in time here. And he's combining that with a putter that's been lukewarm at times. He lost 2 strokes putting at the Sanderson Farms. If we get him on his Bermuda grass, his chosen surface, the one that I have identified where he gained 9.1 strokes gained at the Valspar, this guy is the best play in the field. I can't be talked out of him. There was nobody in the world. 50% ownership wouldn't have talked me off of playing at least some of him. I'm just saying. We play a DFS and we play golf, and that's maybe a little egregious, but he's 25%. I think there's going to be some single entry where he actually ends up even a little bit higher. I love him, and I love Scotty Scheffler. It's very similar. I thought that it was going to be different than last week, but I'm finding myself gravitating to those two constantly. How about you?
Spoken like someone who's about to jet off to Hawaii and barricade themselves without this nonsense. Yeah, listen, Sam Burns, there's no arguing. The guy's been unbelievable. He's an LSU grad. He has real splits on Bermuda. That is a thing with him. And the rest of the game, tee to green wise, he's as good as anyone in the world. I have not been ready to anoint him a 11K player in fields like this, but he deserves that. And now the ownership has come with it. So that's where I have a little problem. If you're going to tell me you want to start with Sam Burns, he is one of, if not the favorite in this field. I totally get that. I just look at, and I see guys who are not playing nearly as good. There's no doubt, but you're getting a discount in ownership and a discount in price. And one of them I have to ask you about is Tony Finau, who after his win, he's done absolutely nothing. He's gotten some reps in. He did play at Mayakoba. You're talking sub 10% potentially. Is that enough to entice you to start with him in some lineups?
I'm having a tough time with him compared to Brooks Koepka, which again, they're both the two guys that are sub 10% that are, we got rid of Ortiz here. So I guess that doesn't really matter, but Patrick Reed getting a low ownership, and we'll talk about him later too, but above 9K, it's Reed, it's Brooks Koepka, it's Tony Finau that are the ones who are getting no attention. Comes down to how many lineups you're going to make. I mean, I'm going to do a lot of 20 max. I'm going to maybe do the 150. I'm not sure what I really want to do here yet. Going to kind of decide afterwards here, like how much I really want to put into it tonight. I got a lot of other crap to do, but I'm thinking right now that Tony Finau is going to be probably the guy that I hit eject on compared to the other two. I'm not really sure what's going on with him. The Mayakoba 45th is just a bad result from him. A pretty lackluster, unenthusiastic weekend. Again, the CJ Cup seems like he just kind of was there. Fourth round, 65 was great, but just a really easy golf course kind of situation there. His big weapon has been the driver. He can't putt right now. I think I'm just more willing to take shots with guys who have been making a ton of birdies of late, who gain strokes a lot with Bermuda here. Tony Finau, not my favorite play. I guess you could be talked into anything that's sub 10% with that much talent, but I'm probably going to go elsewhere this week.
I mean, I think if you're banking on long-term talent, driver heavy, Tony Finau makes sense. I have no problem with it. He lost 6 strokes putting at the CJ Cup. It was a putter issue. Other than that, though, I don't really see a ton that's leading me to him over the guys right next to him. You've got Sunday if you want to go more technical. He's a par 70 guy, but this is a longer par 70 than I kind of envision him really preferring. What about Matthew Wolff, who's always extreme scoring? You never know. I think his miscut equity is always higher than the guys around him. But as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, he also can dominate, and he's been very good lately.
Not going to do it. I'm not going to do it at 15%. And I know he's been good fifth and a second. I mean, I'm really kind of dodging it, but the
putter 15, though, at Shriners was on fire.
Yeah, it's been outrageous. You can't play everybody. I'm going to be pretty selective with some of these guys that I'm choosing to lean on. I mean, obviously Sam Burns and Scotty Scheffler, you're paying a pretty penny for. And so that's kind of forcing me into a 7K range that I'm kind of in love with again for the second consecutive week. That build kind of served us well last week. This is a completely different golf course, completely different situation, different field, but I'm still kind of thinking that that's the way that I want to build this week. And Matthew Wolff, just in terms of the last 2 tournaments, there's really not a whole lot you can say. He's been much better than I expected him to be. 6.9 strokes gained at the Shriners. Mayakoba, we don't obviously have the strokes gained totals, but I'm going to assume the putter was decent again in that spot. I'm going to hit eject on him. I never was there, so I'm just going to continue to fade, I think.
So you've mentioned you like Burns, you like Scheffler at the top of the board.
Yes.
Do you like them together in a lineup where you're spending $22,000 on 2 golfers? Do you think that can work? You would have $7,000 for the remaining 4 spots.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I almost shipped everything with JT and with Hovland last week. It made a lot of sense to me. Again, different golf course, different situation. And because something worked one week, you can't just say, oh, well, it's going to work again this week. But I find myself leaning towards those kind of builds. I don't mind getting to both of them. I don't think I'm going to get to them nearly as much as Hovland and J2. I just thought no matter what, we're going to make just a crazy amount of birdies. I thought had an amazing floor. Didn't feel great after the front 9 for JT, but he definitely came back into form. And, if it's not for that crazy run and JJ Spawn falling off the map there at the very end for me, it could have been a completely different week. It ended up being pretty flat, but I think you can actually play them more than what most people think. I don't have like a Charles Howell sub 7K play that I just have like some conviction over, but I've got enough guys down there where I can compare them with that mid 7K range and be okay.
Yeah, a lot of mixing and matching will be done. Last guy before we dive into the nines. For me, just to sum it up, I'm with you. I like Scheffler. I think the best of
Mhm.
anyone. Then I'm kind of indifferent. I think you could get to Finau. Certainly Burns is playable. What about Ty Hatton, though? He's the last guy in the range. At times he's looked great. He's had a lot of success in Florida. He's a winner at API, again,
Mhm.
Bermuda. Do you think that that's someone that can kind of rekindle the form where he was truly outside of majors playing better than anyone for a stretch last year?
Yeah, on Bermuda, looking at his splits there, it comes down to iron play. And most people don't think about grass type really affecting your irons as much as what it does your putting and your chipping. Just because you have different grinds, you go from having an 8 or a 10-degree bounce to like a 4-degree bounce. When you go from Bermuda to something else, you generally want to have a little bit more bounce on your wedges when you're playing on the Bermuda surface. So it can be something as small as that, but I think it definitely affects your iron play. I know Colin Morikawa had the big switch. The biggest decision he made his entire year was switching his 7 through 9 iron and being able to go to more of the blades to be able to cut through the grass at the British Open, ends up taking that golf tournament down. It was a small edge for him. I think Tyrell Hatton definitely has something a little bit more towards Bermuda, sixth in strokes gained on the Bermuda surface over the course of the last 50 rounds compared to the field. So I think that that's something that's a kind of a pretty sharp point to be looking at. And I mean, he's definitely somebody who's always kind of been there with the irons. I mean, he's still fifth on other surfaces, but definitely I think more inclined, playing well in Florida, played really well other than a final round in South Carolina as well at the RBC Heritage. So I think there's something we can mine out of there. I'm definitely going to be over on that number, but he's definitely not going to be a large stand that I take there at 10K.
Yeah, you can deal with wind as well. I like Ty
Mhm.
Hatton, and
Yeah.
and Cam Smith is right there. Cam Smith is obviously solid. I think if you're leaning that off the tee is important, that's always going to hurt Cam Smith. But if you think it becomes more technical, there's nobody better, at that. And certainly the
Mhm.
putter, that guy's unbelievable. So I get it. You've got the options. This is why they're the best players in the world and in the field that we have. But we still have some big names here, starting with Brooks. So Brooks is going to be a popular bet. See him in the 30s. I actually like him more as a bet than a play. His form is just not there. So do you buy in early, or do you say, you know what, I want to see it before I start getting exposure to him?
So here's what I'm trying to take away from Brooks Koepka is this is, I think, going to be his last tournament of the year, correct?
I mean, I don't know the schedule, but it's got to be the last or maybe one more. I don't really think there's much left for him, right?
So yeah, so he went down to Mexico. He, kind of pitter pattered, did whatever, didn't really care. I think he probably cares just thinking about it being the last tournament of the year, finishing it on it was a down year by Brooks Koepka standards. The guy wins majors. He put himself in contention at basically two majors and didn't come to fruition on either one of them. And that's what he gears up for. But I'm not going to be crazy on him either. But if I'm making my 150, if I'm going to the normal allotment there, I think being a little bit over on Hatton and a little bit over on Brooks Koepka definitely makes some sense, as well as Adam Scott. I think all three of them, if I'm going to just skip Finau, skip Wolf, who I expect to actually be a little bit more popular even than we have him, and then skipping Sung Jae and Cameron Smith, if I'm skipping that whole range, I do find a little bit of savings going to Koepka, going to Scott, and going to Hatton. So I think I'm going to prefer those three amongst just about everybody else in that upper range.
Yeah, again, I think if you want to take a stab on Brooks in the betting market, just knowing that he could blindly turn it on, I
Mhm.
think that's fine. I'm not going to get there. Lineups wise, I just don't really see the need. There's an opportunity cost. Give me the guys we talked about. You've got below him Adam Scott, Neiman, Gooch, who's playing out of his mind, Aaron Wise, Patrick Reed. Loaded 9K range. So I always ask you, can you start here? And who is your favorite of the range?
You can start here if you would like to. I we had talked last week about how underpriced Joaquin Neiman is now. I mean, holy mother of God, did they flip the script on that? 7,800 at Mayakoba was just kind of a misprice. We took advantage of that. 9,500 though, now at 15%. I mean, that's even come up a little bit from yesterday. That's going to be a tougher one for me. We know he can turn it on anywhere. Some of these easier golf courses, he can be a ball striking Jesse, but I really like Taylor Gooch, and I'm happier eating that chalk than I am Joaquin Neiman. Not going to say he's volatile, but I mean, the Zozo didn't exactly have it there. Mayakoba, we definitely got that. And I think the price kind of dictated a lot of rostering him. I can't really do it at the same number. 9,500, I'd prefer Taylor Gooch. His recent form, 4th, 11th, 5th, 11th. I mean, come on. This guy's been as consistent as possible. One of the guys that we've been riding this entire fall swing. I'm going to continue doing it.
I mean, there's no pushback there except that he's going to be very, very popular, but it's based off the fact that the guy's playing world-class golf. Neiman is a tough one for me. He's always been a macro buy. He shows flashes of it. We saw it at Mayakoba. I just never get a good feel for exactly what type. Like if you told me, okay, for your life, Joaquin Neiman has to play one course and you need him to play well, where would you have him play? I don't have a great answer for that. You know, part of me says like Quail Hollow, but then the other part of me says like RSM, which are two totally different layouts. And I think that's what confuses me. He has shown, you know, he's a winner at Greenbrier, second at Rocket Mortgage, second at Sony, those types. I'm not sure if the Houston Open screams perfect fit for Joaquin Neiman.
If I had to pick one.
Yeah, where would you think he would be best suited given his skill set?
Maybe I'm biased because I'm going there like in 5 days, but I think Kapalua would probably be the one I would pick. If I had one golf course where it was like, hey, you need to win this golf tournament to save my life, I think I picked the Plantation course at Kapalua.
I see why you're getting there. Like I totally understand that. And he was a runner up at TOC.
Yeah, he was. That's right.
Last year. And I do think that fits his skill set. And Neiman is a guy that he's definitely in play. It's just, again, would you rather start with him? Is he your second man in? What are you doing with Taylor Gooch? Aaron Wise, who's always a favorite of mine, has also been really, really good to start the year. He's clearly found his form. The putter has flipped, no doubt about it. I think you can go right back to him and just kind of ride that form similar to Taylor Gooch.
Yep. I'm right there with it. We're just going to kind of ride a couple of these guys' form. It's going to be a pretty empty 8K range for me, aside from like one or two guys as well. So I am finding a lot of my lineups concentrated, you know, either Sam Burns, 2 in the 9K range. That's not completely crazy. Okay. You can start in the 9K range. I don't mind starting with, you know, like an Adam Scott or a Taylor Gooch, 9,300. And then combining them with I think there's just a ton of talent in the 7K range. You can add in my 1 or 2 8K guys, and I think you can make a really nice lineup. I really don't mind it. I mean, JT and Victor Hovland are a different class of player than everybody in this field, aside from Sam Burns and Scotty Scheffler to me. Like, I think those are the two guys that just, on a talent perspective, that, and again, I know that you don't view Sam Burns the same way, but I think the grass type definitely helps here to analyze him a little bit more like that type of player in those conditions. And Scotty Scheffler has always just been solid. Maybe doesn't have the kind of upside that Hovland and J2 do, but you know, I do think the 9K range is much more viable to start in on a week like this, as opposed to a week like last week.
Yeah. And listen, the betting markets agree with you. Like they are the top two by significant margins in some spots. So I get that. We're going to get to the 8s. We're going to talk Kokrak and those guys. I do want to ask you about Patrick Reed, though. He's flat 9. He's, you know, Texas guy, obviously a grinder. He's showing flashes of it. We know Reed can turn it on, and we saw it for a second. And then was that a blip on the radar at Bermuda, or is that something that's a catalyst for big things here?
I hope it's pretty decent, under 10%. I have interest in him this week for sure. I mean, Mayakoba, whatever, I don't care. It's a different kind of golf course. Again, I will take more. I said this the other day too, where I was like, I'm going to take more away from the guys who just played well at Mayakoba and kind of see them continuing like the good form. Like Taylor Gooch has just been playing good everywhere. Like it doesn't really matter to me. Sam Burns has been playing good everywhere of late, so it doesn't really matter to me. But some of these guys that really fell off the map there, I mean, Patrick Reed, what did he end up finishing? 56th. He played really well round 2, shot 65, kind of coasted a little bit on the weekend as well. But I'm happy to be getting to some Patrick Reed sub 10%. He's, you know what, the number 22 player in the world still. He's still somebody that's really well regarded. He's won majors, obviously green jackets. I think he's a more talented player, especially if we're getting the healthy version of Patrick Reed that was suppressed by his, what was it, double pneumonia? Seems bad.
I mean, listen, Reed, world-class player. I think you can turn it on. Kind of in the Brooks bucket for me, where I think I'd probably rather bet him around 35-1.
Okay.
But I wouldn't hate it. If you're building a bunch of lineups, I think Reed needs to be in there. Do you have, if you were building, say, 150, do you think you would have any lineups that start with Reed? Do you think it's too low? Okay.
I mean, if I like the 9K range, and if I'm saying, hey, I'm going to start there, but Brooks Koepka, Adam Scott. I mean, Adam Scott has not had the form you want out of Adam Scott. There's no question about that. But fifth at the CJ Cup gives some improvement there. The putter's still been fantastic. So weird to talk about him not being good off the tee and being bad around the green has always been his thing. So here we go. Yeah, I think you could. I probably wouldn't want to get like in 150, you can definitely have a couple, but yeah, I would not get carried away with that. I think that there's a lot. It's not like last week again, where you have those 12 to 1, 15, 16 to 1 guys. I'm still so mad I didn't bet Victor Hovland. That still was too long of a number. I should have probably been there on the like in that field, but I'm always looking a little bit longer than that. Yeah, you could probably do a couple, but I wouldn't go nuts with that strategy.
I think it's a little thin. There's just too many guys above him at this point. So that's where I'm at. All right, let's go to the mid range. And before I do, I don't even really need to tell you guys this because, you know, loyal listeners of this show know it. Hit that like button. We appreciate the likes. Join the channel. We've had a couple joins. Subscribe. Hit that notification bell. You guys know the drill. We're building so much content here. We also have the Awesemo Odds channel where we're talking betting, all things betting. If your state, like New York and some, are coming online soon enough, no better time to get over to the Awesemo Odds channel and check out some of that content and see some of the tools that we've got. But let's talk about the mid-range. So we get things started with Russell Henley, Jason Kokrak, Mark Leishman, Bez. These are guys that obviously have some win equity. Where do you see yourself going in the top of the eights?
Top of the eights. So Kokrak, people were clamoring for him. And I think Kokrak makes, I think, more sense than most weeks that we've been looking at Kokrak. We tried to make Vegas a thing for him again here, but it's 7%. I think you're getting some nice ownership discount on him as opposed to Russell Henley, which I don't understand why he's coming in with 12%. Mm-hmm. And Russell Henley is one of my guys. I'm just not there whatsoever.
So Russell Henley is always a tough evaluation for me because I do believe that he's kind of like he's a better player than Sneds, there's no doubt, but he's a guy, he's a winner. He can come out of nowhere, he can win, and his irons are just unbelievable. Every time this guy plays, even if the results don't follow, I mean, in his last 4 tournaments where we have strokes gain data, he's gained 5 or more strokes on the approach 3 of 4 weeks. Now he's lost strokes putting in all 4 of those. That's what's killing him. But he's a Bermuda guy historically. So going to his preferred surface, I think if you combine that with his irons, that's why people are getting there. Kokrak, on the other hand, his off the tee game, which used to be the strength of his game, is in just shambles. He's lost off the tee in 6 of 7. So I don't know how you go there unless he fixes that. He needs to get back his biggest weapon.
Okay, that's fair. For me, Russell Henley went to the saw grip. He ended up going to claw last time out. Anything would be improvement off of what he's done for the last 4 weeks. So if he can fix that part of his game, sure. He's been obviously leaning on his irons big time. And if he fixes a putter, we're talking about a winner, like as you said, but we're a long ways from that. We're a long ways from being flat with the putter. So I'm probably just at 12% not going to go there. For me, Kokrak, I get it. Like, again, you can talk about his driving and it's been, shambles is, again, probably the right word, but CJ Cup was an easier golf course and it wasn't necessarily there. Here, Tour Championship, he was flat. And yeah, as you said, 6 of 7 isn't very enticing to be looking at, but can get ultra hot with the short game, ultra hot with the putter from time to time. Kind of look at him the same way as Henley in that kind of a regard, where somebody who could just flat out win. But yeah, 7%. For me, it's more of just like, hey, I want to find some kind of pivots, and I don't completely hate it as much as you, but I see why you hate it so much. Yeah,
I mean, I go back and forth with this. I always am more concerned when it's the guy's strongest weapon. It's like, okay, then what? It's not like, oh, he's a bad putter and he's struggling putting, because that can flip, but that is his absolute go-to is off the tee, and it's not happening right now. So I just worry that there's something there. I also like Mark Leishman, who's right below him. He's a Bermuda guy. Another, if you want to correlate a little to Hatton, this is another guy that's won API. He's also come in second at API. I think there is some merit to thinking about that. Leishman's a guy who can do it in a ton of different ways. He's gained 7 strokes putting 2 of the last 3 weeks, so we know he can spike. And he's just a good player. I think Mark Leishman, when healthy, is someone that is always dangerous. I don't think he's going to get a ton of love. He's 50 to 1 in the outright market. That is a good enough bet for me. Worth a shot today with Mark Leishman.
Yeah, and I mean, the ownership's there too already. It makes sense. I've seen him talked about around the industry a little bit. this week, I think he's a good play. I don't find any issue with it. It's pretty easy to see a box score with a fourth and a third in two of your last three and be like, oh, point to him. Yeah, he's a good play when you don't have a ton of other recent form from other players that might be, at his price or above. But I like him. I'm worried that he might be a little bit higher owned than what we have him at, but
Okay.
in a bubble, just mainly because I've seen him written up or talked about everywhere. I'm probably going to be at the number, maybe even a little bit below, but I totally get it. He's been playing fantastic. He's one of the guys that I like to, sometimes you have the guy that it's like, oh, well, I want to cheer for him anyway. I guess I could just bet on him and probably solve a lot of that problem. But CJ Cup, not as good, but Shriners and Fortinet was awesome with the irons. And that's kind of what you're looking at. And he gets so crazy hot with a putter. We know that the upside can be there.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Leash, I think he's got a lot of bad data in there because he wasn't healthy. And if you remove that, he kind of stands out. And, the ownership, maybe it gets up there a little. I don't think it's going to be alarming. I really don't. Maybe small fields or something. But for me in large field tournaments, he's just fine. What about Maverick? Because Maverick is a guy who's continuously getting a lot of talk in the industry. It seems like he's on the short list for a matter of time before he breaks through. Another good showing at Mayakoba. You just keep playing him, or do you say, you know what, I'll let other people do that this week?
He's my boy. It's really, really hard. He was crazy. He was like 25% yesterday. That's now under 20% to the place where I feel a little bit more comfortable with him. But I like Seamus Power at the exact same spot. Like I'm going to be siding with Seamus Power a little bit more. The Mayakoba result was nice to see as well. It was nice to be back on board with him there. Bermuda, we were there. Mayakoba there. Shriners was a little bit disappointed, but he scored pretty well still there with 19 birdies. But I like to be playing a ton of Seamus Power in this range. And so Maverick McNeely, I think if he ends up being 17.8%, I think I'll be probably close to that number. I think that sounds about appropriate for him, but I've generally been multiple over the field. It seems like the field's kind of taken note that he's a really good player as well. That's just somebody I think for the last 6 months of doing these shows together, somebody that we've brought up more than any other show ever. But I like Maverick McNeely a lot.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a lot of reason that a guy like that is getting buzz is because the talent is there, the pedigree is there, the form is there. It checks a lot of boxes. So there's reasons. It's not just blindly there. And I think you can look to him as long as you don't go, really, really vanilla at the other spots. I think you don't want to be playing 3 or 4 guys with major ownership, but I don't worry about that here. Anything for the lower eights, Seamus, Tringale, Lowry, Hughes is that's a sevens. No one, don't even get me started on him. Max Homa, Lanto. What do you got in the low eights?
I've got a little bit not Homa, Shane Lowry, a little bit of Shane Lowry interest. I think, does he pair well with Mark Leishman if we're looking at body type? Can we have a body type build?
Yes, the underrated body type stack. Smart. Very knowledgeable.
I'm just saying, you're here for the hard-hitting analysis. Happy to provide it.
Again, they're more like a man that's flying off to paradise in a couple of days.
Yeah. No, my ties. I'm going to come back, and it's going to be just like the pants will be a little bit tighter. I'll tell you that.
How many rounds do you think you get down there?
Oh, I'm going to play at least 7 times.
Okay.
There's no way. Seven rounds. I bet I play 36, like 2 or 3. And she'll probably come out on the course for like 1 or 2. She'll go to a spa for a lot of it.
You take a cart, right?
Thing. Yeah, I'm going to tee off at like 6 a.m. a couple of them so I can play like one time around really quick because you've got 2 courses there at Kapalua on Maui. You've got a couple of the other ones. And then we're going to Lanai for a hot second for like 3 days. Yeah, no, we're fancy now.
If I had $1 for every time I played at Lanai, I'd be poor. But that's neither here nor there.
Love you too. All right. Yeah, no, let's play some Shane Lowry in our lives.
Yeah.
I think that he's just kind of a great kind of 8,200. I don't know necessarily what it is that's been kind of plaguing him. Mayakoba was just god awful, but it's a completely different kind of golf course here for me. Shane Lowry, we know that he can just be so good around the green, and something we talked about at length yesterday. Not nearly as good off the tee, but again, I don't expect it to be like the main pivotal point for me. I want to be looking more a little bit with some of these long irons. And this guy is a master with irons as well. Top 10 in strokes gain approach here over the last 50 rounds. I'm happy to get there and just hope the putter flips.
You said it. I mean, you go to Shane Lowry because his irons are as good as basically anyone in the field right now. It's similar to Russell Henley. with just not a broken putter. Now, his off the tee game in a short sample size has just been non-competitive. You just have to hope that regresses. You can't win if you're losing 3, 4, 5 strokes off the tee. It's just not going to happen. So Shane Lowry's that type of guy. You would want random wind if you get that. Maybe it plays a little harder. He is certainly built for those conditions, but let's keep it moving. Let's move to the 7K range. You've got guys like Mito, HV3, Woodland, Grace, someone in chat mentioned, Dan mentioned Grace at 80-1, another wind guy. If you think maybe it plays difficult, what do you think about guys that could be your third or even fourth man into your lineup?
Third or fourth man, I mean, I'm looking more in that upper 7K range. I'm not going to be going down to the 8s nearly as much. Seamus Power, Maverick McNeely, happy to get to a little bit of him as well. Shane Lowry, and then I'm moving on with my day. Upper 7s, we're starting to get to like Harold Varner territory where I'm finally, I think for the first time in a long time, going to be in on Harold Varner, more so than Brandon Grace. Brandon Grace is a tough one because I'm very biased. He treated me very well like 3-4 years ago. He went on that hot major run where he was kind of competitive at every major. It would seem like for quite a while, put himself into contention multiple times and just never really got it done, but like was always kind of in the hunt for some of those spots and was always kind of a cheap flyer guy that you could always be over the field on and always be kind of relying on. Been more competitive of late. The 7th at the Zozo is nice, but that was a really hard golf course compared to the way that we were kind of setting that up to be. I don't think it's going to play like that. I think it's going to play not even like the CJ Cup. It's going to play somewhere in the middle of those two events. And so he's just kind of like meh to me. He's fine, but I'm going to get to definitely Harold Varner in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, HV3 is a guy that he's certainly shown some flashes at times, and I think that his game is quietly in a pretty good spot. I actually kind of like that he missed the cut at Mayakoba, because I think if you're really going quickly, you might think, oh, not playing good. He had a long made cut streak before that, a lot of top 20s in there, really just solid. I think he's been performing at a high level. I don't see anything in this course that gives me concern. I want to throw one more name at you though. What about Johnny Vegas? He's a University of Texas guy. The form hasn't been good, but he's one of the elite off the tee guys that we have in the game right now. That's his strength, certainly a ball striker. Do you see anything there? This is a guy who's got several wins on tour, and he's shown that he can, when he gets it going, he's a very dangerous player.
Yeah, so at the CJ Cup, I believe he was like 65 or 6,300. He was something super cheap, and it made it very problematic because he was kind of the person everybody went to. I do like this 7,500 tag for him because I think he still presents the same kind of upside, but now he's not like a freebie sub 7K. I mean, we had seen a number of tags that were either low 7s or in that event, CJ Cup, much better field, obviously, insane field, no cut event, low 6s on that number. I kind of like that it's sitting in that mid 7,500 number. You're looking next to Jason Day, who's getting a ton of attention, and I don't know if it's all warranted. And I'm probably out of any other golfer in the field excited to get your Jason Day take, but Jonathan Vegas, I am in on that dude.
I like Vegas, particularly if you go off the tee heavy. He fits that build. He can play, can get crazy hot, good scorer. What about Chad Ramey?
Yes. Again, obsessed with the 7K range. I mean, that's really the takeaway. I'm in on Mito. I'm in on Harold Varner. I'm in on Kevin Streelman. I'm in on Chad Ramey. I'm in on Jonathan Vegas. I'm in on Ian Poulter in a gigantic way.
Okay.
I'm in on Ian Poulter. You want to talk about somebody missing a cut and having it being a good thing? Ian Poulter missing a cut and then showing up on Bermuda is like maybe my dream scenario, because he's at 7.6% and he basically got blown up by one hole at the Mayakoba. He shot 66 the first round, shot 73. That was all the benefit of one bad swing where he put himself in a terrible spot and made $1 million on a hole and missed a cut. Goes from basically almost an auto top 10 to an MC. And that's going to reduce his ownership. I think if he had made the weekend, he's been playing really decently well here. I mean, the CJ Cup, different situation, but didn't play well the final round there. I think that missed cut is going to hide some decent enough form where I want to get to him in a meaningful way. But again, Jason Day, where are you landing on him?
I mean, if someone knows exactly what you're going to get from Jason Day, you need to hit me up so I can use you for college basketball winners, because it's impossible. There's just no way to know if he's healthy. The last time we've seen him, he was just atrocious. Now he seemed to like this course last year. I just think that you got to kind of know if you want to play Jason Day, you have to understand that everything from withdraw to playing well is in range. And at 10 to, if he's truly north of 10%, ownership wise, I would let other people do that and say, if Jason Day burns me, I have to live with it. Cause I think the miscut equity is so high. To be honest, I would rather play Vegas, rather play Cam Davis. You mentioned Streelman there. There's just a lot of names. And I do think you bring up a fantastic point. Not all miscuts are created equal. Ian Poulter was 8 under, and then he blew up on one hole. He was playing very good golf. I don't think that that's the same as just not having it. So regardless that I don't think that Mayakoba really correlates, clearly the game is in pretty good shape. So if you want to go back to him in a more technical layout, I think that's very, very warranted.
Yeah, Jason Day. If we're talking about the overall body of your golf career, Jason Day is the most underpriced player on, and I wouldn't even, there's not even a conversation we could have about that. But if we're talking about the Jason Day that I've watched for 2.5 years now, who I believe his best finish is a 4th at Pebble Beach over the course of this long haul. I don't know what to tell you. I can't believe that he's 10%. I'm going to have 0. I'm not going to have a single share of him. And he's not even in the player pool. And it just is weird to see him grading out that well, seeing 11% on him. I just think it's completely unjustified.
Yeah, there's a real case, and I like Jason Day, even though he's cost me a lot.
Oh yeah, I played him at Memorial, and he had a kid and withdrew. And
he might just be done.
I'm pissed.
Like health wise, he just might never be the same. The putter has not been there. I would really caution people with Jason Day if he's going to be popular. That's always a caveat. If he's low owned, have at it. I just think there's other plays. Let's keep working down. You've got guys like Schwab, Willett, Ryan Palmer, who I think, and again, he's shown he's got Texas roots. The form is just broken though, particularly the putter. What do you do in the low 7s?
Yeah, Ryan Palmer, I think in Texas, you could probably always play a little bit and you're never really making a mistake. He's just kind of turned it on during this swing time and time again. And, some people like going to their home state. Some people just like there's a comfort thing that maybe exists there. So, at 6%, it's not like he's 15% and you have to make a decision. It's pretty easy to click the thumbs up, have a little bit and move on with your day. I'm happy to get to him. Taylor Pendrith is an interesting case. Goes from playing phenomenal at Bermuda, weak field, one really good round in there, the 61 in the second round, to just shitting the bed in that first round at the Mayakoba. But different golf course, different situation. I mean, Taylor Pendrith, for all intents and purposes, should have won in Bermuda and did not with that final round 76. I think he's kind of a nice buy low, under 10%, still 7,200. Charlie Hoffman, I'm always going to play on any kind of a demanding iron golf course where you're asking somebody to be hitting some long irons. You're going back to Texas for him too. You want to talk about somebody who's played well in Texas. Well, he's right up there as well. Charles Schwab, 3rd earlier this year. I'm happy to be clicking his name as well. Just obsessed with this lower 7K range.
It is a target-rich environment, no doubt. I think this is where, by the way, if you're doubling up north of 10, or even if you're playing like Burns and one of the guys, like the Wises of the world, you're going to really pepper this range in particular. You just pick the guys that you think fits best and have at it, because you've got 3, 4, 5 options basically at every price point. And I do want to say one last thing about Jason Day, and it comes from newly member of the team here, Mike. He said, if you want to play Day, just maybe play him in Showdown. I absolutely agree with that, because he's shown flashes for 18. It's just over 72 holes. You don't really know what you're going to get. And the nice thing about Showdown, if you wait and he plays awful on Thursday, then you just don't play him particularly, or you buy low on Friday if you want to do it like that. So there are ways to get exposure to some of these guys without just playing full length. And if you have questions on that, it's one of the many reasons we want you guys as part of the team. Awesemo Plus, go to awesemo.com/join, pick the package for you. And if you join, hop in our Discord, say what's up, talk some strategy with us, get some college basketball bets from me. Why not? Nothing better than that. I know when you get back, you're going to be itching to catch up on some betting. Are you not?
Oh God, dude, college basketball. That's like,
doesn't get any better.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite sport to watch, bet, do anything.
True.
And I wish a lot of the DFS contests were a little bit richer, but right now, cash games, using the projections yesterday alone, I think I won like 90% of my head-to-heads. So just like use those projections. They're free right now, and then pay for them once you realize how good they are.
They can be used for betting as well. If your books have, limited props and stuff, Matt Gajewski, there is no one better in the industry.
None.
That is a fact. Guy is just unbelievable. Love what he does with these things. He puts in the work with these teams that nobody knows about. It's just a fantastic thing. I highly recommend it. I use it every single time I go to make wager, just to get a sense of what these players are doing, what these teams are at. So college sports, fantastic. Love betting college basketball. Certainly got my fair share of wagers tonight. But let's get to the cheapies. We've got a lot of guys sub 6K. We've got Luke List. We've got Aaron Rye. Thigala is down here. Russell Knox. I mean, you mentioned at the top, you might jam Scheffler and Burns in some of these lineups. So who are the guys that may come attached to them?
Well, we skipped Henrik Norlander at 7K. That's another guy at 4% that I'm going to be not drastically, but I'll be 4 or 5X of 5% or 4%, whatever that number ends up being. Been having pretty good recent form and pretty quiet. You talk about somebody who's quietly in form. I think he definitely passes the bill. So I'm landing on him a lot at 7K. I'm going right back to the JJ Spawnwell. Talk about somebody in recent form. I mean, this guy is playing freaking good. And he was like 1% last week. And Jason and I talked about him. We both had like 20-something% of this cat and thought we were going to just get paid. And he bogeys the last 4 holes to just decimate some of our best lineups. So that was a huge bummer, but I don't really care. Again, his long-term form has just been good. Not long-term. His recent form has just been good. And I'm happy to kind of be buying in there. Aaron Rye has been a buy candidate for me constantly. I just think he's far more talented. And now a 15th in Mayakoba, that was really nice as well. A lot of the plays that I've been doing the macro buy for have just been hitting in this spot. And he's kind of at the top of the list where I just think eventually I'm going to see some even better results even than that 15th. So him at 6,900. I know Sahith Theegala, that's somebody that I think just the DFS industry has started to steam up, but now at 3%, I think I'm willing to take a couple buys here. He's had some really wayward tee shots. You watch him play and it can get a little strange from time to time. It's a little uncomfortable watching him hit drivers of late, but I don't really care. I'm just purely betting on the quality of player, college player of the year coming out of Pepperdine, an absolute stick. So I'm pretty excited to be rostering him as well. Finally back down to where he belongs, around 3%.
Yeah, Thiegel is one of those guys. To me, he has the biggest likelihood of being the most mispriced guy in the entire field. And what I mean by that is we just don't know. He could be amazing, and this is the start of something, and he's going to be 10K next year at the Houston Open. He could also be off the tour, and we're just like, you remember that guy? That does happen, unfortunately, to some players. Going to a couple other guys. So Luke List, I think, is a great tournament play. The numbers, 17th at Sanderson Farms, then a miscut. 7th at Zoizo, then a miscut. You're not going to get any, stability. That's the way he plays. I don't have strokes gain data for the last 2 events from him. It's a little hard to know what he did, but we just know what Luke List generally does. He kills at tee to green and he can't putt. In terms of strokes gained, he's lost in 7 straight events where we've got the data with the putter. That's just a product of it. Joel Dahman is the more consistent option, just $100 more. Guy's made 4 straight cuts. He's made 8 out of 9 straight cuts, but he has no top 20s in that span. So if you're looking for a cut maker, a guy who probably is more likely to get you to the weekend, I think it's Bucket Hat Man. But if you're rolling the dice, probably go with Luke List there. What about like Pat Perez, Piercy, Jaeger? We have to mention Jaeger because you mentioned him every show. Brian Stewart, Stenson is down here. God, what a time to be alive. Can't hold anything back now. What do you have in the mid 6s?
I didn't play Jaeger last week. I feel like that's improvement. I feel like I can finally breathe again.
I respect that.
Thank you. Number 1, strokes gained around the green at limited data amongst this entire field. Just throwing it out there. Don't really care. Can't hit a golf ball right now. I've been macro buying him, and that has been an incorrect decision here of late. So I will be hitting eject once more. That felt good to get that off my chest, but I think I'm going to be landing a little bit more. You had brought up Pat Perez. I think that makes a lot of sense here at this number that we're looking at. Noted strokes gain approach guy where he can really get hot. Palmetto 6.3 strokes gain approach there. Northern Trust 5.7. Putter also been really, really good. Gained in 6 of his last 7 in that department. So I think there are some things where, yeah, the missed cut equity is pretty high in this spot. I mean, he's sub 7K, but I mean, there are some decent enough results. 16th Northern Trust, 11th 3M, 14th Rocket Mortgage, 10th Palmetto. All of those numbers can go a long way, especially if you hit the winner and they end up being in the 10K range. So I'm happy to be getting to some Pat Perez.
Yeah, I don't mind that. This is a guy who can kind of turn it on. And I think this is where, as we get lower, to me, course fit becomes even more important. You need certain guys. We go back to, I'm going to keep using him as an example. When we were talking about Graham McDowell, and we both said that there's only a couple courses realistically that this guy probably has a chance on, and one of those island courses was one of them. Here, I think some of the guys in the opposite way are kind of, I don't say excluded, but it's a lot harder for them to compete. I think you need to be able to keep the ball somewhat in play down here. And Pat Perez is an elite driver, but he does make up for it with approach and certainly with the putter. There's just not a ton down here. I mean, you've got like Denny McCarthy's playing a lot better, but I think this is probably a pretty bad course for him. Lahiri's down here, a true GOAT. One of my favorite golfers, but his form is absolutely atrocious. Is there any complete punts before we turn on our hot takes and bounce on out of here?
Yeah, I got a guy.
You got a guy?
I got a guy. Let me find him.
Kill
Here.
Keith
6,200. No, 6,200. Who am I going to play at 6,200?
Oh, Trey.
No, but I do like Trey Molinex. I have a little bit of him.
It better not be MJ Defoe.
No, it's not even listed on Cruncher right now. So that kind of freaks me out. I know that he's in the field. He's on DK. His name's Sang Moon Bay, excuse me. Sang Moon Bay.
Chad mentioned Sang Moon Bay earlier.
That's great. His Bay. Yeah, see, Brian Train knows. He watched the show yesterday. That's what it is. So again, coming off of military service, getting back in the swing of things here. Played a full Corn Ferry Tour allotment of starts here. Gets the start at the Bermuda, doesn't really do anything with it. I rostered a little bit, but he shot 77 that final round. It was pretty abysmal. Up until that point, 71, 69, 69, 68, and the weather was abysmal. Everybody knows how abysmal that was. Played pretty darn well there. 6,200. I've seen crazier things happen than somebody like this get into contention. We've seen it where guys emerged at like RBC, whether that was, I can't remember his name right now, but I know for a fact that at 6,200, there's not a whole lot you're going to find down here other than maybe a share or two of Trey Molinex, and I have that. But I'm going to play Sang Moon Bay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Sang Moon Bay is not going to be even remotely owned, so you should do that in large field tournaments only. I'm not going to play Sang Moon Bay.
I said I have no Charles Howell. There's no sub 7K guy that I'm going to play more than 10% of. There's none of that this week.
I would agree with that. I would just rather play Molinex at the same price. That's the only reason I have no real take there. It is, yeah, you got the Veterans Day narrative for him.
Yeah, I'm playing Trey.
I don't know what else to really say there. And again, I think unless you're double dipping north of 10, you don't really have to worry about that. And you do have like Uline is down here, Sneds is down here. To me, there's just other dart throws. If I'm going to allocate, 5% of a guy just for the hell of it in a large field portfolio, I would rather go to those guys, not to Sang Moon Bay. Is that who we're talking about? It's got to be.
Yeah, there's nothing like the last recommendation you make before a 2-week hiatus isn't even on Fantasy Cruncher.
That's a sign usually.
I should probably go, huh?
But you know what? Hey, Chase Kopka's here. Yeah, again, I think this is all comes down to lineup construction. Just know what you are trying to do up top. What I always recommend, you want to prioritize. If you've got some guys that you say, I'm living and dying with them this week, that makes it a lot easier because then you can build around that, make your stands, and then open it up more and more as we work down. All right, best time of the show, hot take time. Hit that like button before we say some egregious to possibly genius things. You know how we operate. You, sir, you won the coin toss, so you can either defer or you can receive and go first here. What do you want to do?
Ooh, I'll defer. I don't have I have one really, really hot take. Obviously, I'm rostering Sang Moon Bay in a lineup, so that's probably one. But mine isn't as I'm expecting you to come with the fire. So you bring the fire and maybe I'll match you.
Okay. I will say, Troy Merritt wasn't that bad. My last hot take wasn't super egregious. So I think I'm building up. What am I building up to? Mark Leishman, 50-1 in the winner circle this week. I really think this is a good spot for him. He's a winner, proven winner. When he gets going, he's got all the skills. His putter is working. Quietly, very, very good form. I think he's a very live bet at 50-1, even 40s. It's a lot easier to find that number out there. My hot take is that Mark Leishman wins the tournament.
I really like that. I think I have no issue with that. I've got one guy that we can add to that card if we want to round it out. Yeah, we're going to go Seamus Power. I like Seamus Power a lot this week. I talked about him there in that 8,400 range. Coming off of a 21st, 12th, 11th, he's trending up. He won that Barbasol. I think he's locked in. I think he's going to make a little bit of a push this season to be one of those guys that kind of emerges where he's going to be in the 8K range, even in really strong fields going forward, maybe a 9K guy. We've seen him well north of that in a couple of these spots in weaker field events, but Seamus Power is really, really talented. And we've been talking about him for a long time. I think this is the week that you can pair him. I do like the Mark Leishman call a lot as well. He'll be a part of my card. But I really like those guys. And then HV3. I haven't played HV3 like at all, period. But I think this is a really good golf course for him. 50-1, 55-1. Hit that number too.
I like it. Last thing, Mike Campbell in chat. Hot take, Burns trunk slamming. That's a good one. That's a very reasonable hot take.
Seriously?
What? That's just a good hot take.
You're going to do that to me?
It's a perfect level of fire. It's not too crazy. It could happen. Do I think it is? No, but that's why it is a hot take. That's what we do around here. We will see. All right. You, sir, have a great, safe, fun adventure. Enjoy yourself. Everyone out there, happy Veterans Day, including to the man behind the glass, Mike, our producer, one of the best in the business. Happy Veterans Day to all of you. Good luck this week. Enjoy the golf. We'll talk to you guys same time, same place next week.